ladies and gentlemen, Bill Whittle.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Maybe we could can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Great. I got a little thing here called an iPhone, and I started off, I've got a picture of Fidel Castro on it. It keeps me out of 4-hour territory. Hey, listen, it's great to be here. I especially like starting the event with the national anthem. It's a great job back there, Ethan. The reason we sing the national anthem at conservative events is because we want to know if there's any progressive spies in the audience who might write a negative report, and if we sing the national anthem before we get started, their skin bursts into flames, and a giant hole opens up in the ground, and sulfur comes out, and they descend back into the fetid hell that they came from. It's just a security thing, really, more than anything. I am so happy to be here. I told Charlie I'd come down and do this event no matter what it took to come down and do it. I would like to just say one thing to Charlie, just because I'm a little concerned about this, especially in the future. You know, when you have a bunch of guys in the field in Vietnam or in World War II, whatever, you know, you got a patrol moving through the woods, it's like space out. You guys spread out, okay? You spread out because you don't want one guy to throw a hand grenade and take out your entire team. Charlie, we are one small meteorite away from losing the entire future of the country. I never want to see this many sensible young people in one room at the same time again. Not ever. It's dangerous. It worries me. We're gonna start this convention of ours violently, because what I want to talk about today in the time I have is I've been fighting these people for a long time, and things are changing now. Things are different. They're different than they were 6 months ago. I think they're different than they were 1 month ago. And I think what's happened in this country in the last 6 months especially is we no longer have to convince the American people, and I mean the bulk of the American people, we no longer have to convince them that the left is wrong and that we're right. They know it. They're sick of it. They're sick of being told things that they know aren't true. They're sick of political correctness. They're sick of all these campus hissy fits. They're sick of being told this is the religion of peace. They're sick of being told all this stuff. We don't have to convince them anymore. We just have to tell them it's okay to say so. We just have to make it okay to say so. So Mark Twain talked about this. He called this moral courage. And he said there's a difference between moral courage and physical courage. And what he's really talking about is something called social proof. Before I get into the main part of the remarks today, I want to talk to you a little bit about social proof. Social proof is what we used to call peer pressure. It's a psychological term, and psychologists have measured social proof, and they will tell you that the most overriding factor on human behavior is social proof. And what that means is people would rather do something contrary to their most deepest held beliefs if everybody else is doing it. And we all know this is true. It's one person in 1,000 who can stand up and just say no when everybody else is doing what everybody else is doing. Those one people in 1,000 happen to be in the same room tonight, right here today, so I don't have to tell you about that. You know what it's like. But it's that kind of moral courage. So to give you an example of the difference between moral courage and physical courage, if there's a building on fire and you can hear screams from inside and there's 100 people on the street, everybody stands there because everybody stands there. Everybody stands there because that's what everybody else is doing. If one person has the moral courage to run into that building, there'll be 25 people right behind him. Right behind him. They just need permission. They need permission to go. And scientists who really study the power of social proof say, look, if you're in someplace awful like New York City, let's say, and you're in the middle of Central Park, and you have a heart attack, and you're going down, they actually say this. They say, if you have a heart attack and you're going down, if you hit the ground unconscious, and the first person who comes to you walks past you, then everybody else is going to walk past you too. Because that's what happens. That's what people do. So they say, look, if you're having a heart attack in New York City, what you really want to do is say, hey, you in the blue shirt, call 911. Now that guy's been activated. And then everybody will come to your aid. So social proof is important. And the reason I say social proof is important, because I want to talk about political correctness today. We're just going to throw hand grenades at political correctness all day today for me. Anyway, that's where we're starting. So let's just start with this whole idea of a safe space, okay? I have a safe space. I do. My safe space is called the United States of America. That's what my safe space is called. And it's called my safe space because the entire purpose of the United States of America is to create a place that is safe for you to say whatever you damn well want to, period, full stop. Period. When when people talk about their safe space, what they're really talking about is they're talking about a place where they don't have to hear anybody else's opinion. They don't have to be offended. You just call it what it is. Just call it what it is. It's a nursery. Okay, you want to go back to your nursery, and you want to sit in your crib and you want your bottle. It's not a safe space, it's a nursery, and it's a nursery for babies, it's a nursery for infants, it's a nursery for people who were raised as children, are going to be children till the day they die, and just mock them, just call them what it is. It's a nursery. Your safe space is called the United States of America, and the reason it's a safe space is because you can say whatever you want to here, and no one can do anything about it. No one. You have the right to say whatever you want to here. You have the right to whatever religion you want here, or no religion. You have the right to do whatever you want to. And this is a critically important thing. And the point I'm going to try and make all day today is, look, I don't want to argue with these people anymore. I just want to mock them. I just want to mock them. I just want to make fun of them because they're a bunch of weenies and a bunch of D-bags and a bunch of losers. And that's all they are, and that's all they ever will be. And the reason they're setting up, the reason they're setting up these structures is because they want you to be weenies and D-bags and losers too, because they know that they cannot compete. They know that they can't compete, so what they want to do is they want to eliminate the entire idea of competition. And that's why all of those guys who are giving you grief right now are all going to be working for you, and sooner rather than later, for the rest of their miserable little lives. Okay? Because they do not have the ability to act and think like adults. So, just very quickly, we all know the kind of names that we get caught. Now, one of the things that's really important in this fight is you have to have some information. You have to be ammoed up. I mean, if you're going to really be arguing with these people in a way that makes you get them out of their trenches and flip them over so they vote for the good guys, instead of, Satan and the wicked witch of the West, but I'm not going to mention any names or anything. If you're going to get them to move, you got to make arguments that they can understand. You got to make arguments that work with them. For instance, we've all been called fascists and we've all been called Nazis. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the kind of ammunition you guys need to have, okay? So you get called let's say you get called a fascist. Anybody know what the word fascist means? Anybody know where the word actually comes from, the etymology of the word? Bundle of sticks, it's exactly right. A fascist was a term that the Italians used for a collectivist movement. And they used a symbol that the ancient Romans had used. If you look at ancient Roman iconography and also on Italian fascist iconography, fascist comes from the word fascisti, which is a bundle of sticks. It's Italian, that means a bundle of sticks. A bundle of sticks is a bundle of individuals. The idea was little sticks could be broken one by one, but if you put all the sticks together in one place into a bundle, you couldn't break that. A fascist is a collectivist. A fascist is a person who believes that we should all be bundled together as collectivists. They're the collectivists, right? So who's the fascist here? They are. They're the fascists here. And if they call you a Nazi, just stop and say, because these people, they don't even know their own arguments. I don't know how many times, I'll come back to this in a minute. They don't even know how to argue their own side. So they'll call you a Nazi, let's say. Anybody know what the word Nazi, Nazi's an acronym. Anybody know what the word Nazi is an acronym for? National Socialist German Workers' Party. You can't spell Nazi without Socialist Workers' Party. Bernie Sanders is in favor of a Socialist Workers' Party. So who's the Nazi here? Who's the collectivist here? The thing that we have to talk about constantly is I don't want to deal with conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat. I think we lose on those terms. Let's just get down to brass tacks. There's only one term that holds consistently through history about the difference between our two sides, and it's the collectivists versus the individualists, period. And if you can argue for the individualist, you're going to win every single time. And we got a lot of ground to cover, but I want to talk to you a little bit about messaging. In fact, I want to talk to you almost exclusively about messaging. But one of the things that's most interesting about this is, you're going to hear me refer to millennials today. That specifically includes everybody in this room and probably a lot of your friends as well. Okay, I'm talking about the cohort of the we know we're talking about the microaggression crowd. And we're talking about. I just don't know what else to call them. We'll just call them that for the time being. So I've had a chance to talk to some of these people, and they identify as socialists. We all know they call themselves socialists. We all know they're amped about Bernie Sanders. We all know they're amped about the big collectivist state. And we all know what they say. But the other thing that's interesting is, and you may be onto this too, is they may say they're socialists and they may say they're communists, but they don't act like socialists and they don't act like communists. They act like capitalists. They've been told they're socialists, but they're not. So let me give you two quick examples of the kind of argument that takes things right down to the level where these people have to be confronted with their own behaviors. I was at Oberlin College a couple years ago. Oberlin is the most liberal college in America. Oberlin is where reason and logic go to die. I have never been around so many stupid people in my life. It was hosted by the Oberlin Republican Committee, the Oberlin Republican Club, which consisted of 3 members, no exaggeration. And 3 months before the 2012 election, the president of the Oberlin Republicans hadn't decided whether he was going to vote for Obama or Romney. That's the actual truth. So you want to talk about beaten down by social proof. So I do my little dog and pony show, and when I'm finished, I look out in the stadium here, because there's 40 people in there. They're all progressives. How many of you guys consider yourself to be socialists? And about 7 out of 10 raised their hands. And I said, okay, socialists, what kind of phones do you have? I got at the time, I have 5. What do you got? Well, what do you want to know what kind of phones we have? I'm just curious. I just want to know what kind of iPhones, what kind of phones do you have? What kind of smart devices? And they get Droids and LGs and all that other stuff. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do, socialists. Why don't you tell me what socialism is? What's the defining definition of socialism? If you had to give me socialism in a sentence, in one sentence, what would it be? Look, it's not really up to me to argue your side of the argument for you, but I got a little time on my hands, so I'll do it anyway. Isn't socialism from each according to his ability, to each according to his need? Isn't that what Marx said? Isn't that the essence of the collective socialist idea? That we're going to take from people according to their ability to produce, and we're going to give it to people according to their need. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need. That's what communism is, Marxism, socialism, the whole thing. That's what the whole collective, redistributive thing comes down to. From each according to their ability, in other words, the rich 1% fat catters, to each according to his need, the desperately, desperately poor. Right? Yeah, that's it. That's what we believe, definitely. That's what we believe. We think it's awesome, we think it's fair, we think it's cool. I said, okay, socialists, here's what we're going to do. Just the socialists, by the way, those 7 out of 10. Come on down to the front and bring your smartphones with you, and we're going to put a little basket down here in the front of the room, and you're going to put your smartphones into that basket. And don't worry, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not going to steal them from you or anything. Here's what we're going to do, though. When I'm finished talking tonight, I've taken a rough look, and we've got $2,000 worth of electronics in this room. So when we're finished, you're going to bring your smartphones down, we're going to put them in a basket, and then all of us together, not just me, we're going to go to downtown Cleveland, which is a short drive away, and we're going to sell these smartphones, and we got $2,000 worth of electronics here. That's $120 bills. And then we're going to go through the streets of Cleveland, and we're going to distribute $20 bills to homeless people who are in need. So bring them down. Well, guess what? They don't bring them down. And the reason they don't bring them down is because they're not socialists. They're rock-rib capitalists is what they are. And they're all about wealth redistribution as long as it's somebody else's wealth being redistributed to them. But when it's time for their wealth to be redistributed to someone else, all of a sudden, they're William F. Buckley. And they'll say things like, this is my phone. I say, yeah, exactly. Technically, it's your dad's phone, but we won't split hairs here. It is your phone. And so you confront them with their own behaviors. I had an even better example of this not too much longer after that. I was talking with a guy, and it was kind of a one-on-one thing, and he was a progressive. You can flip these people in about 10 minutes if you know what to do, by the way. And he was saying, all right, you're making some interesting points, but look, you can't possibly defend the idea that somebody can have 5 houses. That's just disgusting. You really can't defend the idea that a person could be so rich that they have 5 houses while there are people in America with no houses at all. That's evil and wrong. Surely you've got to admit that kind of income inequality is evil and wrong. And I said, hey, let me just ask you a question. Pull your phone out and tell me how many songs you have on your iPhone. What? Just tell me how many songs you have on your iPhone. Simple question. I don't know. 750? Do you need 750 songs? Do you listen to all 750 songs at the same time? Couldn't you get by on 50 songs? Every time you download a song, it's $1.29, right? Dollar, round numbers? That's $700 of songs that you downloaded for your own personal use that you could have given to poor people who need it for their educations and all the rest of it. What kind of a vicious, evil bastard would take $700 from needy people so that he could have 750 songs on his own phone? I'm kind of ashamed to be seen in the same room as you. And what you do when you do things like this is you point out to people, you're making exactly the same decisions as the person who has 5 houses, because that guy earned his money, and if he wants to spend the money that he worked hard for on houses, that's his business. The same way if you want to spend the money that you've earned on downloads, that's your business. And I don't want to live in a world where some guy who you've never met before tells you how many songs you can have on your phone. I don't want to live in a world like that. And all of a sudden people realize that what they do is different than what they say. And you see this kind of hypocrisy all the time. Guys like Matt Damon get out there, it's like, I think we ought to raise taxes. And I'm a millionaire. I'll be paying more taxes than anybody. I think we need to raise taxes because we need to fund programs like Head Start. Well, that may work on your friends back home, Matt, but it doesn't work on me because I live in Hollywood and I know what it's like. By the way, people say, why don't you move someplace a little more sensible? Why do you have to live under the red eye of Mordor out there, which is exactly where I live. You scurry around in the shadows. Well, the answer is, if you're going to be a volcanologist, you've got to live under the volcano, right? I mean, I live in a world where they're actively, possessing, they're trying hard to get, like, human rights for broccoli where I come from. So I have to be out there. But when Matt Damon says, why don't we raise taxes? And it's the same thing for Warren Buffett, too. It's the exact same thing when a guy like Warren Buffett says, let's raise taxes. I'm going to pay more taxes than anybody. I'm a 1%, the rate's going to go higher than me. Nice try, but. Nice try, but, Matt. When you do a movie for Warner Brothers, they don't write a check that says, pay to the order of Matt Damon $10 million. They write a check that says, pay to the order of MD Productions, Inc. for $10 million. And then MD Productions, Inc. pays for his house, his office, his car, his travel, his retirement, his health care, pays for everything. They probably pay Matt a couple $100,000 a year for spending money. So he's not paying income tax. It's completely sheltered legally, which is exactly what I do. I'm my own corporation. Every one of you out here, every single one of you, should be your own corporations. If you're not already, you need to do it. Look, we're all going to be working for Charlie Kirk one day or another. Might as well just get it over with. But seriously, I know how it works. It's a lie. When you talk to these super progressives in Hollywood, in the Hollywood Hills, they say, well, you need to raise taxes because of those social welfare programs. Is that what you tell your accountant then? Is that what you tell your accountant to do? Pay all the taxes that you possibly can, plus add 10%? Is that what you tell them? No. They say, get me every single break you possibly can. I want every single tax break I possibly can. They say one thing, they do something else. We don't have to have that problem. We can say one thing and do the same thing. That's why we can face ourselves in the mornings in the mirror. So messaging is important, and this is kind of what I want to talk to you about, because I actually need some feedback from you guys today, because I want to talk about messaging in terms of destroying political correctness, okay? So look, you want to talk to people about political correctness, we can put it in a nutshell. They can talk about political correctness all they want to, and they can say that this is the world that we want to live in, but they go to movies just like we do, and they go pay movies, and they pay the same ticket prices as we do, and I'm here to tell you that when I saw Skyfall, or the last James Bond movie, James Bond did not go after the villain with a strongly worded letter from the United Nations as his only weapon, and he didn't leave the scene in a Prius driving away at a sensible speed, okay? So, we're the team that believes in loud guns, fast cars, and hot women, and freedom. And if you can't sell that, and by the way, the RNC can't sell this, the establishment GOP can't sell this, they can't sell this to save their lives. They can't sell loud guns, fast cars, and hot women. They can't sell that. They can't sell freedom to the American people. They all need to go, and they need to be replaced with you guys. So, let's get to how we can actually do this thing, because this is really what it comes down to. Look, I'm tired. The person who brought me to conservatism was a guy named P.J. O'Rourke. Excuse me one second. And the reason P.J. O'Rourke, look, I wanted to be a fighter pilot until I was 17, then I became a theater major. So I went from being a supersonic warrior to being a complete liberal D-bag. I've lived in both of these worlds. I know how they both work. But being in the theater and being on the left is kind of cool. And all the cool kids are on the left, and everybody wants to be cool. But P.J. O'Rourke had written for Harvard Lampoon and National Lampoon, and he was a bomb-throwing hippie. And then finally, he got a job where he had to go around the world as a reporter for Rolling Stone, and he saw what was going on in the world. He said, oh my God, America's the greatest place in the world. And then he started writing really funny stuff, and he said, we're the swingers, we're where all the hot chicks are, we're where the action is, we like all the stuff that's fun. They're the weenies who are always telling us to do less, wear a helmet, set your thermostat, drive this car. Come on, step up. You guys are the worst people in the world. And so why can't we do this? Well, the establishment can't do it, but we can. Look, there are some people out there that can make conservatism smart. And there are some people out there that can make conservatism funny. But what we really need are people out there that can make conservatism smart, funny, and sexy. And I can't do this on my own. I just can't. Smart, funny, and sexy. Why do we talk about sexy? Why do we give up sexy? Why do we give sexy to the left? They're not about sexy. These feminists aren't sexy. Consent forms. May I undo the next button on your blouse? Yes. Sorry, I don't want to spoil the mood, but I do have to get this notarized. Okay, we can now proceed to step 17G, subparagraph 1. That's what they're selling.
Don't forget.
All right, that's what they're selling.
Actually,
And if we can't mock this and make fun of it, then we don't deserve to be living in this country. So I want to talk about messaging. I want to talk about sexiness. I want to talk about cool. Now, one of the things that I've said for a long time was that this was 2, 3, 4 years ago. It was 4 or 5 years ago, way before there was ever talk about a Star Wars reboot. Way before. I said, somebody asked me in Phoenix once, some high school girl said, hey, look, I want to start a Tea Party organization at my high school, and I was wondering if you could give me some advice. And I said, I can definitely give you some advice. And the first advice I would give you is whatever you do, don't call it a Tea Party meeting under any circumstances whatsoever. Young people don't know what the Tea Party is. They think it's a bunch of old ladies sitting around drinking tea. Those of us with a bit of historical knowledge know that what the Tea Party really was a bunch of frat guys who got liquored up, threw on some makeup, went on a boat and chucked some tea overboard because they were a little PO'd about having to pay a little bit too much money in taxes. It was a giant frat prank. It was a bunch of young guys got liquored up and went and just smashed up because they were paying too much for their Wi-Fi. That's what the Tea Party was about. That's exactly what it was about. You're charging us for Wi-Fi? To hell with you guys. Knocking them back and off they go. And we're proud of that because we're rebels and we don't like paying for things that we shouldn't have to. So when you start talking about things this way, people start to connect to it, right? So I was talking about George Washington. And we all know what George Washington looks like. We've all seen pictures of George Washington, and he's 6'4", and he's got the powdered wig and the tri-cornered hat, and he's got the waistcoat, and he's got the pants and the frilly shirt, and he's holding a musket and stuff. And I'll tell you something about George Washington most people don't know. In the middle of the Revolutionary War, which went on for years, almost a decade, George Washington sent a secret message behind the lines to London, who he's fighting. He's fighting the British. He sent a message to London, and the message went to a tailor in London. And George Washington wrote a message that said, I would like to purchase 4 waistcoats in the latest fashion using the most pleasing colors that are currently in style, and I'd like the buttons on the waistcoats to be as ornate as possible without appearing ostentatious. So why did George Washington send this letter to the best tailor in the world? Because George Washington was the best dressed man on planet Earth. That's why. He was the best dressed man on planet Earth, and he had to be, because he was leading a revolution of farmers and hicks and hayseeds and wheat, eaters. And that's exactly what the Europeans thought we were, just a bunch of hayseeds and hicks. And Washington had to show them, no, I'm not only capable of walking into the court of Versailles or the court of St. James in London, I will walk into that court and I'll be the most sharp dressed man in the room. He was making a point about the level of civilization of America. So why am I bringing all this up? The reason I'm bringing it up is because if you talk about George Washington to people today, they see what I just described, the guy with the powdered wig and the tri-cornered hat and the vest and the coat and all that other stuff. But that's not how people who knew George Washington saw George Washington. He was the best dressed man in the world. So if George Washington were here today, George Washington would be standing here. He'd have a $3,000 Armani suit. He'd be wearing an $800 Hermes shirt. He'd have diamond cufflinks. He'd have $2,000 shoes. He'd have an $800 haircut. He'd be holding an AR-15 with a laser target designator because he was a badass swinging dude. That's who George Washington was. He was a dangerous, deadly, awesome, great-looking guy. And that's why people revered him. And so what we have to do is we have to get away from this whole idea of the parchment and the quills and all the rest of this stuff and and the banners. Look, I've been to a lot of great Tea Party events. I've been to a lot of Republican events. I've been to a lot of Republican women events. I've been to events where I look out there and the average age is, deceased. And we've we've got to get away from that. We understand it, we appreciate it, we love it, but when you go to people who don't know anything about American history, and you show them parchment, and you show them a flag with a snake on it, and you show them people dressed as they were dressed, I don't know, what, 200-300 years ago, they're going to think you're nuts. They're going to think you're nuts. So I want to tell you a little bit about some of the messaging I want to do. It looks like I've got a little less time than I thought, but let me see what I got here. Look, I want to go to this PC thing, and I want to go at it hard. So I have done I once had somebody take a look at my videos, and this is about 4 or 5 years ago, and they had it was a person with a lot of money, and they had their young crowd review my videos, you know, the young people review my videos. And the results came back negative. And the reason that they were negative was the response from the young people was, he talks like he's right about everything. Well, I am right about everything. But they didn't like it, see, because I was making a decision and I was making a judgment. And the one thing that young people have never been allowed to do in this country is make a judgment about anything. You can't say that this culture is better than any other culture. You can't say that this work of art is better than a work of art. You can't say this opinion is better than another opinion. They're just different opinions and they all have equal value. Well, I don't work that way. I'm right because I'm right. And when I'm not right, I change my mind, and then I am right. Okay? So they didn't like it. And so one of the things I have to deal with, and the reason I need to hear from you guys, is that when you talk about messaging, I need to talk about messaging for young people that makes sense to young people. But I can tell you what I'm going to do just because I want to. So we'll kind of wrap with this, although it's still going to take me a few minutes. I want to do a series of video for young people. And I think if we don't make this next election about Uber, we're out of our minds. This should be the Uber election. 2016 ought to be about Uber, period. Because young people won't fight and die for this country, the other ones. But they will fight and die for Uber. And so how do we make Uber the election wedge issue? Well, Bernie Sanders hates Uber. Hillary Clinton hates Uber. And the reason they hate Uber, even though Bernie uses Uber, the reason they hate Uber is because the unions that put money into their campaigns hate Uber because Uber is out competing them. There was an actual story, there was a protest, or I guess it was more like a demonstration, in one of the local state houses just a couple months ago. And it was the taxi driver unions, and they were demanding legislation, not making this up. And here's what they wanted the legislation to do. They wanted the legislation to say that when you select Uber, when you make a selection, like call your Uber X now, they wanted the software Uber made. They wanted the software rewritten so that you'd send out the request, the driver would pick up the job, and then a countdown clock, on his phone, would start, and they had to wait 5 minutes before they got the address because the taxi driver said, your pickup time for Uber is so fast that we can't possibly compete with that. We want to add 5 minutes and slow Uber down because we can't compete with them. Well, how about that? They wanted to have a law where they could pick up people at LAX. Uber could pick up at LAX, but in order to do that, the city of LA said, yes, you can pick up at LAX, but you have to add $8 to the fare, and all of that $8 has to come to the city. And Uber said, no thanks. Now, you go to young people with this and say, how do you like the sound of it? Does that sound good to you? Does that sound good to you? That you have to wait 5 minutes because the state has legislated you have to wait 5 minutes because Bernie and Hillary's union friends have enough clout to make you wait 5 minutes and add $8 to your charge? Why do we need this? You got a car, I need a ride. Here you go. Why do we have to spend money and send it to the government? We conservatives think the entire government, the entire economy ought to run this way. We think it all ought to run this way. You got a hammer? I need an extension on my house. Here you go. Why do we have to spend all this money and licensing and regulations and all this other stuff? We're the Uber people. We're the people that believe in peer-to-peer. We're the Airbnb people. We are the people of the future. We're the people that believe you should be able to make a deal with him without having to send half of the money to somebody who has nothing to do with it. And you can say to people, look, what's it cost to download a song now on iTunes? $1.29? What if it was $5? And what if the difference, what if $3.50 went to the Department of Downloading to make sure that the files aren't corrupted and to make sure that the people are safe and make sure that there's no crime going on? What if every song cost $5 because it had to go to Washington? People get this. So what I want to do is I want to do a series of videos. This is probably going to sound really weird. I started this and I want to end this by saying I just want to poke my fingers in the eye of these people. I'm tired of it, I'm sick of it, and I'm done with it. So I'll give you 3 examples of the kind of videos I want to do. I just made the case for Uber. Now I could do a firewall about Uber, and I could stand there, 56-year-old guy, in front of a flaming background, and it would appeal to some people. But what I want to do is I want to shoot it like a movie. I want to have a little Uber car come up with a little Uber logo, and I want a person wearing a Feel the Burn pin, and somebody else with a Hillary, I'm ready for Hillary t-shirt, to get in there. Now this is a little weird, so just bear with me. And then using the special effects that I have, I kind of want to appear as, not as a hologram exactly, but as, I want to wear a real thin tie and a real thin lapel, and I want to be a guy from 1963. And I want to treat it like it's the very first color TV ever. Maybe just black and white scan lines. And I want to have a highball in one hand, and I want to have a cigarette in the other. And I want to just appear on the street. And when I appear, I want these people to go, oh God, not this 60s guy again, please. Not the 60s guy. And then I just want to just say, hey, I see the Bernie thing, I see the Hillary thing. Bernie and Hillary both hate Uber. You know that, right? No, they don't. Yes, they do. Why do they hate Uber? Well, because one's a communist and the other one's a corrupt grafter, that's why. And then I would make the case I just made to you. And I would say to them, look, get with it. Don't be an idiot. These people who you're ready to vote for are going to take away the thing you like the most. Why are you carrying that cigarette? Don't you know smoking's bad for you? Yeah, you'll notice it's not lit though, right? Well then if it's not lit, why do you have it? Because I'm a free person, I can do whatever I want to, that's why I got it. So, and this kind of thing. Now we're going to go to the third rail here. I want to do one about feminism. And I want to go into one of these classes where these women are telling young men that they're born rapists. That they're rapists, that they have to be maintained, that every single boy in the class is a defective girl, that there's something wrong with all of them, that they don't share enough, and they're a little bit too energetic, and they need to be either medicated or calmed down, because God knows any second now, they're just going to go off and just start raping either women, or furniture, or computers, or whatever is handy. And I just want to appear in the room. And I want to appear like this. And I want to say to this, you know the kind of person I'm talking about. Can I just say quickly, look, if you don't believe in equal pay for equal work, this is not what I'm talking about when I talk about feminism, right? We all know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this kind of evil kind of demonization of young men. It's been going on forever. When I was a kid, the girls were completely left out. It was all about the boys, and it's gone completely the other way. So I just want to appear like this and have this woman say all the stuff that you hear them say about, oh, men are this and this. And I just want to appear. I just want to say, you know, sweetheart, you either need a big stiff drink or 10 years of psychotherapy because you've got major daddy issues to deal with. Whoa! What? And she'll say, what did you say to me? You heard me, baby. I find that degrading and condescending and offensive. Well, sweetheart, you're supposed to find it degrading, condescending, and offensive, because what you're saying to these young men is degrading, condescending, and offensive, and they don't get to leave. They don't get to walk out of this room. They don't get to. They have to sit here and listen to you with your psychological problems, telling them there's something wrong with them because you've got problems that you don't have resolved. And I think it sucks, frankly. I don't think they should have to take it. And I just want to get into a discussion with them. Now, I happen to have a friend named Kelly Carlson who was on Nip Tuck. She's the most beautiful creature ever lived. She's an actress. And I just want to have her appear just right next to me, just like the shimmering color TV image. And it's like, yeah, you know, it's like, so what? You're his wife? Yeah. So how do you know he's not a rapist? And I want to have her say, because I don't date rapists. How hard is this? I date gentlemen. He's a gentleman. Most of the time. You are a naughty girl. And you're going to get your reward a little later. So, and then this rabid feminist will say, so I suppose you're happy with him telling you exactly what to do. I suppose he just runs your life and keeps you in the kitchen all the time. And she says, no. He works his butt off for me. He does everything he can. He protects me. He's out there protecting me from the world. I worship the guy. I adore him. He's given his entire life to me. He'd take a bullet for me. That's why he walks on the side of the street. That's why he gets the doors and the chairs. It's not that I can't. It's just he can and he wants to. Yeah. And I'll say something like, yeah, that's why I walk on the side of the street, because if somebody splashes water or mud up, it's going to hit me and not her. And if the car jumps the curb, it'll hit me and I'll have something soft to land on. And just this kind of thing. Just this kind of thing, right? And I don't know how far I want to go with this, but I just want to say something to the young men out here. because I have a sense of how bad it is. I don't know how really bad it is. So I'm just going to say something that I do not want to have offend any of the women here, because there's a lot of women. If you don't believe in equal rights, if you don't believe in any of this stuff, you don't belong in this business, you don't belong in this movement, you don't belong in this stage, period. I don't want to have any question about this, none. Okay? None. But I have heard so much demonization of young men out there that it's time that we go right directly at this. Because I'm tired of our troops being told that there's something wrong with them, that they're less than, that they're imperfect women that somehow weren't fully formed. Okay? So in this video, I might say something to the effect of, let me tell you something. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm just going to say it. I will say, because I'm in this ironic box, I'm going to say what is actually true. I'm going to say, listen, just so we're clear, feminism as a movement exists because men allow it to exist. Because men are decent enough and fair-minded enough to allow it to exist. What? It's true. It's true. We're bigger than you, we're faster than you, we're stronger than you, and we're also smarter than you, although we're also stupider than you. As it turns out, female intelligence is like this, male intelligence is like that. Men are much stupider and a little bit smarter than women, and everybody knows this is pretty much true. But I'm going to just have them say this. I'm going to say, listen, because she's got to be foaming at the mouth. And this is what I mean by going at it directly and punching it in the nose. Feminism exists because decent men allow it to exist. It doesn't exist in the Middle East because there are no decent men in the Middle East. It exists here because men allow it to exist. What are you saying? I'm saying that you can have this opinion only because big, strong men are allowing you to have this opinion. What? Lady, if I really, truly didn't like what you were saying, I'd come up there and beat you to a pulp. There's nothing you could do about it. I'd call the police, and other men would come. To maintain the deal. You may not like it, but it's true. It's true. Why would I say something like this? I would say something like this because the feminist idea is that since men do commit most of the crime, in fact, virtually all of the crime and most of the violence, their idea is if we breed violence and masculinity and courage and strength and determination and guts out of men, then we won't have any crime anymore and we won't have any violence anymore. That's exactly, precisely wrong. There are always evil men in the world. There have always been evil men in the world, and there always will be evil men in the world. There will be people who can't do things and who are going to take it from the people who can. And the only defense against bad men is not no men, it's good men. That's the only defense against bad men. That's all there is. And so your desire to destroy masculinity in this society is not going to protect you. On the contrary, it's going to condemn you to a world where none of these men know how to defend you or want to. When you see Scarlett Johansson in a movie who doesn't have any superpowers as far as I'm aware of, she's what, 5'3", and she's knocking out 5 or 6 or 7 security guards who are 220 pounds or 6'4", whoop-ha, down they go? No, it doesn't work that way. And the reason I'm saying this is because, not because I don't like women, it's not to denigrate women, it's on the contrary, it's to protect women, because if entire generations of young men and women grow up watching a 4'2" woman beating the living daylights out of 6'-foot-tall men, then they're going to start thinking that they can actually do this. And that's not going to end well for them. And that's not the real problem. The real problem is, if you have an entire generation of young men who've done nothing but watch women kick their butts on TV, then this entire thing that was drilled into my head from my father from the day I was old enough to understand language, which is, you never hit a woman ever, 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 ever. What if she hits me first? Not ever, ever, ever. What if she hits me with a frying pan? Never, ever, ever. Why? Because you're bigger than them and you're stronger than them and they can sting a little bit, but if you hit them hard, you could kill them. And if you don't instill this into men, if you don't instill into men the idea that your job is to protect these women and to make their lives as easy as you possibly can, and your reward for that should not be to be constantly denigrated and insulted and assumed to be rapists and all this other stuff, then the entire idea of manhood is going to leave this country and we're going to be in a world of trouble. Because I've seen what's going on with ISIS and I've seen what these people do. And we're not going to deter these people with sternly worded letters. It's going to come down to your generation. It's going to come down to your generation This is not putting women down in the slightest. It's not putting anybody down. It's not saying that women can't be great combat pilots, because they can. I'm telling you, however, that the greatest threat to this country right now is the destruction of the idea of manhood and masculinity, which is constrained violence, which is an honor code that says that you will only harm those people that are doing harm to others, and if you harm an innocent person, you're not in the club anymore, and the rest of the good men are going to track you down and make you regret your decision. Somebody has to talk to the young men of this country in this kind of language. And if we don't understand that our single greatest opportunity electorally, in terms of winning elections, is to appeal to the young men out there who have been utterly demonized, utterly feminized, utterly just destroyed, it is an enormous opportunity. And listen, I've been in the dating scene in LA for a while, and I'll tell you what happens in the dating scene in LA. It's very simple. The men are weak and the women are crazy. That's what happens in LA, and it's a cycle. Weak men make the women crazy, and the crazy women make the men weak. And these guys can't open a jackknife, and they cry and they complain, and their car breaks down, and they want, oh, we have to call a AAA, or maybe you could get out and push me while I steer. It's like, no. It's not taking anything away from women. I think anybody should be able to do any job in this country, whatever they want to. I can't be clear enough about this. But this destruction of these ideas of masculinity, and the idea that in order to, look, again, I'm just here to tell you the truth, right? If the Democratic Party says, I cannot understand, it's impossible for me to comprehend how a woman could be a Republican. What they're really saying is, in order for you to be a Democrat, the only thing that you act, because they're so anti-choice, the only thing that you have to do in order to be a real woman, in other words, a Democrat, is to be enthusiastic about murdering your own children. If that's the bar that they set for you to become a Democrat, okay, let's call it what it is. I'm not making a decision about choice here. I'm saying we have to talk about these issues in a way that is real. We have to talk about them in a way that is courageous. And what I have to close this session with is saying this. I know a lot of this sounds very challenging to you guys, and I know it sounds very, very disturbing in some cases. But look, the more we retreat from these people, the more we retreat from the safe spaces, the more we retreat from political correctness, the more we retreat, the more we back up, the more we agree, the stronger they get. We have to do exactly the opposite. We have to go on the counterattack. There are young men and women, who are overseas deployed right now to keep this country free. Some of those people never came home. They're as young as you are. They never had a life in front of them, nothing. They fought and died to keep this a free country, and we have to be willing to show the same amount of courage so they have a free country to come back to. Okay? That's going to require courage. It's going to require the kind of moral courage I was talking about in the beginning, and it's going to require some physical courage as well. Which means that you have to confront these people directly. When they talk about safe spaces, you have to go invade their safe spaces. When they talk, you have to go into them, and you say, this is a media-free zone, or this is a space. No, you don't get to tell me in a public square. No, I don't care about your safe space. I don't care. It's not safe anymore. Now you have to listen to what I have to say. If you want to go back to the nursery, you can go home and lock yourself in your room. That might be your safe space, but not out here in public, no. But that's a microaggression. Pretty soon it's going to be a macroaggression. You have to confront them. You just have to confront them. And you have to confront them in a way that is not even arguing with them. You have to confront them in a way which basically says they are what they are. They're weenies. They're babies. They're idiots. They're children. And everything they believe is designed to raise their moral stature. Right? So whenever I argue with these people, that's why I never worry about, I have my ammo, I have my facts, but I always argue about the unearned moral superiority. That's exactly where I go every time. You're better than me because I'm in favor of keeping my own iPhone. You had a chance to sell your iPhone and give it to poor people. You didn't take it. You make the same decisions I do. I'm just not a hypocrite about it. You have everybody in that room in Oberlin, I said, every single one of them has an Xbox 360, or every one of you has a PlayStation or something. Every single one of you has a toy that you could sell right now for $300 or $400 and feed a family in Africa of real people for a year. Your toy could feed an entire family, maybe even an entire village for a year, but you don't sell it. You don't do what you say you do. You just say you do it because you want to feel better than everybody else. Right? You want to feel superior to everybody else. In LA, you see people driving Priuses down the street. Well, you'll see people driving a $60,000 car with a Bernie Sanders bumper sticker on the back. Bernie Sanders wants a 93% federal tax rate. These people, they're idiots. But I see people in a Prius, driving a Prius, and they have a bumper sticker that says Free Tibet. What are they saying? Well, they're saying, I'm in favor of freeing Tibet because I'm a moral person and I think the Tibetans are suffering. Well, Tibet's not going to be free because some loser in a Prius on the 405 has a bumper sticker that says Free Tibet. If you want to free Tibet, your bumper sticker should say United States Marine Corps. Because if you really want to free Tibet, that's how you do it. So, we'll take a couple questions, but in closing, let me just say this. When I talk about the guy with the scotch or the highball and the cigarette, I'm talking about intentionally offending them. Calling a feminist sweetheart is going to drive them out of their minds. And I wouldn't do that to somebody I respected. I would never do that to somebody I respected. I'm going to poke them in the eye because I want to show that response. How dare you? You're not worthy of respect because of what you do and say to other people. You're not worthy of my respect. You're not going to get it, darling. All across the board. It's not just with feminism. All across the board. We're going to poke them in the eye. So that's what we're going to do. Now, I think we can take a couple questions, but I'm really, really glad to be here. And by the way, I really would like it. I don't know how we'll coordinate it with Charlie, but I need a group of email addresses from you people. I need some people who live there, who are in the trenches. I need to know the language that's being used by the people in the classrooms. I need to know what's going on so I can make the messages, and then before I shoot the messages, I'll send the script out to you guys, and you can tell me, I don't know if this is really quite right, or this kind of seems like it maybe is a little bit false. So if Charlie can work it out, if you get in touch with Charlie, anybody who wants to be part of this kind of hive mind that I need a feedback system, because I don't want the 27-year-olds. These people have already voted for this loser twice. I want 16, 17, 18-year-olds. I want people who've had enough of this. I want kids who are tired of being told what to do. I want the people who are here in this room today to go out there and win some converts. So thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to kick it off, and we can do a couple questions, I think, before we go. Thanks.